Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor. I am watching the Georgia LSU game, and I know I have a lot of Georgia friends that are not going to be happy. It's 9-0 LSU. Looks like LSU's about to kick a field goal here. But anyway, tomorrow I'm going to be doing a travel ball tournament baseball tournament with my son. So I wanted to go ahead and give you another video. May not be around the whole day tomorrow, but I found some really cool things online when I was looking around today. The first is this article about Circle. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Circle, Circle was a crypto startup that's backed by Goldman Sachs. And the most recent news that I had heard before this article was a few months back that Circle had bought Poloniex, which is a crypto exchange. And so that was a really big development. And Poloniex is going to be a big player in this whole thing. I don't know if they'll change the name or keep it that way or what, because Circle, and what this article is about is Circle is they bought Poloniex, and they just bought Seed Invest. My understanding from reading the article is that Seed Invest basically is a company that will help them be able to to tokenize companies or things and then issue those tokens. And then they'll use Poloniex to be a broker dealer to sell those tokens. And so, but this article was really interesting because the CEO, Jeremy Allaire, the CEO of Circle, he said a few things in this interview that I thought were really interesting. The first thing that he said, and that's why I used it in the title of this video, he said, it'll make the web look like a cute experiment, comparatively speaking, in 10 to 15 years. And that he's referring to the tokenization of our economy. And crypto in general will be that much bigger than the web, is what he's saying. And then he says, if we zoom out, there's going to be this tokenization of everything. And then he went on to say, eventually these marketplaces will have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of assets. And I think what he's referring to is companies issuing their own tokens. They mentioned mom and pop in here. If you can imagine just imagine the real estate in your local town. Let's say that you live in Topeka, Kansas, and somebody wanted to issue a token for commercial real estate in Topeka, Kansas, so that investors could buy into a token that represents ownership in certain kinds of commercial buildings in Topeka, Kansas. Anything could be tokenized. And so it is a fascinating new world that we are entering. And he's telling you in this article just how big it's going to be. Well, now I want to tie this in to where you and I are as XRP holders or whatever digital currency you own. If you own digital currencies right now, I found this, and a lot of people have accused me of being C3 Nick because I show his tweets all the time. I promise you I'm not C3 Nick. But if you don't follow C3 Nick, go to C3_Nick. And the truth of the matter is, C3 Nick is just a guy who puts a lot of great tweets. I think he's a guy. He could be a girl for all I know, but I'm pretty sure it's a guy. But he's just a guy that puts a lot of good content on Twitter, and he puts a lot of thoughtful tweets out there that are worthy of covering. I don't care who you are, what your name is, whether you're a girl or a boy or a man or a whatever. Doesn't matter to me. If you put out good information on Twitter and I find it, or you make me aware of it, if it's worthy of being covered, I will cover it. C3 Nick puts out a lot of it, and therefore I cover a lot of what he does. But this is a very interesting tweet. He says, we are even earlier than the early adopters. We are the innovators. And I agree with him. This is the technology adoption life cycle, and it points to the innovator section. Innovators, then early adopters, early majority, late majority, and the laggards. And he's right. I mean, we are so early in all this. But when I saw his chart here, I decided that I would go out on the web and find a couple of more charts, and I found a couple more that are similar to this, but should excite you even more about how early you are and what an opportunity that you have just being invested right now and being willing to hold for the next, say, next 6 months to 5 years even. But just being here, you have the opportunity of 2 or 3 lifetimes. I say this all the time. I'm going to show it to you now. And then I'm going to show you this chart, and then I'm going to show you how the internet evolved. And the guy from Circle, he's saying the internet's just a cute little experiment as compared to digital assets and what will come with this. But look at this chart. It shows the phases of investment into something like this. The smart money is where I think that we all are. I believe that this chart is really symbolic of where we are right now. And just with the internet, and I'm going to go ahead and show you just so you realize how long we're so early that this could go, like the Circle guy said, it could go for 10 to 15 years. But there's so much money that's going to be made along the way for people like us that were what C3 Nick calls the innovators. And so on this chart, if you look at it, it says smart money. Okay, this would be, in my opinion, the smart money would be those of us sitting right here, especially those of us that were in before December of this past year. But I don't know if I'm exactly right on where along this we are, but I believe that after December, I know that institutional investors, I covered this morning that Yale, Harvard, MIT, Stanford, their endowments have been behind the scenes investing in digital assets this year. I believe institutional investors have been buying over the counter all of 2018, and I believe they're positioning themselves. I believe that maybe this bear trap first sell-off could have been like what we had in December, where you had it shoot up, and then we have a sell-off, which is a complete bear trap. We've gotten a little bit of this media attention, but I don't think the real enthusiasm and the public, remember, the public cannot and will not jump in on a large scale until you have BACT, which is the New York Stock Exchange, their exchange, which is going to legitimize all of this and solve the custody problem so that people don't have to worry about their digital assets being stolen from a hacker or whatever and all that. There are so many things that will be legitimized with this as soon as November when they're going to open. I believe that sometime after November, we will be entering this stage here. And people are going to go crazy. And I believe that the Super Bowl commercials and all of that will be the things you see that come right along with that. You haven't even seen the kind of hype. I believe you'll see all of this right here. You'll see a bull trap. You'll see the fear. I don't think that you've even begun until you get into the trillions and trillions of dollars in this crypto market. You're not going to really and truly see any kind of a collapse of any sort. But when I talk about this, I want to take you to the internet. It's important, and I talk about the internet boom and everything because I lived through it, and the parallels are really part of what got me into this. But it is so key to understanding what it is we're in. But crypto is so much bigger than the internet, like the guy at Circle said. But just look, this is from 1991. www was first being invented. or introduced, and you had the commercialization. This is when web browsers first came onto the scene, and what we had dial-up connections. I've talked about this before. You had Netscape Navigator. I've talked about Mark Andreessen, who was one of the founders of Netscape. He became a millionaire from that creation, and is now a venture capitalist, and he's one of the backers of Ripple, which and don't think he didn't see crypto for the same thing. He was there during the internet boom, and he knew it. I'll bet you he knew it the second he saw it, the same way I did, because he's an investor now, but he saw the same parallels, I can promise you. Then we had streaming media. We got Amazon.com. Then it all came up to the .com bubble, and it blew up. This was around 99, 2000, and this all collapsed, okay? And I believe that way back here is what happened last December, and our .com bubble hasn't even really begun yet. I believe these institutional investors have been getting themselves in because they know that we will have the same thing. But you and I, those of us that were in way back here, and were in even some before December, and even after December, the ones that got in after December, I think you're the equivalent of the institutional investors. And I believe that we are about to see a historic, crazy run up. And I've told you before that in this run up right here, you're going to get to experience the same thing Mark Cuban did. You're going to have your Mark Cuban moment, because our bubble hasn't even begun. You're going to get to decide how greedy you want to be. How much money how much is enough? Those are the questions you're going to need to be asking yourself if you have gotten enough into this in this stage. But look how much has happened with the internet since that time. And everybody thought this was the true creation of the internet, but it wasn't. It was really just the beginning. If you look at it, Google came about around 1999. Wi-Fi came about around 2000. The broadband and people starting to get the higher and higher speed connections started back in here. And then you had Facebook that didn't even come along until 2004. Think about how big a part of your life that is. Twitter is way up here in 2006 or 7. Twitter. iPhone. I mean, we look at these every day. We stay on them all day, every day. The iPhone was not until about 2007 or 8. iPad, 2010 or so. See how much has happened since the money, just the initial frenzy of buyers was way back here. Think about how much money has been made since the .com bubble in the growth of the internet. That's how early you are. C3 Nick is so right. We are the innovators. We're the innovators. And it is so exciting to know that this is where we are. I tell my friends when I'm making the point about just how excited I am and how exciting this is, here's what I say to them. I say, if you wanted to buy XRP and you wanted to do it without my helping you, but you wanted me to explain to you how to do it, it might take me a good 30 minutes to even explain to you how to buy the XRP. And even then, you're probably going to call me at least once or twice and want to figure out. And if you want to buy a lot, if you want to buy $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 worth of XRP, then it's going to involve probably opening up one or two different types of accounts like Coinbase or Binance, and it's an actual ordeal to do it. Well, it's not always going to be that way, but because we're the innovators, we got in and we figured it out. We figured out how to do this earlier than when it all seemed so scary to everybody else. And for that reason, we get to reap rewards that many of you could not have even imagined in your lifetime. I know I couldn't. 5 years ago, I was like many of you. We were still recovering from the financial crisis, but I believe that many times life-changing things are born of horrible circumstances, and I believe that's what cryptocurrency and digital assets represent. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Hit the subscribe button, the like button. Go tell your friends and family that the digital asset investor will tell you exactly what's coming and why you should be excited and how exciting this world is about to become. Thanks for listening.